fuel, give me fire, give me that which I desire.
Fuel, the podcast for fixing underperformance and evolving leadership within the automotive industry. Fuel is bringing you the latest in proven strategies and techniques that can take your service department to the next level.
Alrighty, welcome back to another episode of the Fuel Podcast. I got a pretty good panel with me today and some fun topics where we're getting into that most people, I would guess, wouldn't think is a very interesting topic, but I'm pretty sure we're going to get into some fun stuff, and I think it's a very interesting topic to get into. So we'll just kind of go around the horn, kind of introducing yourself, years of experience in the automotive industry and in that kind of stuff, and then kind of what you're doing now. So, James, we'll kick it off with you, brother.
Yeah, James Grogan, Senior Vice President of Client Success at Dynatron Software. Thanks for having me back. I've been with Dynatron for almost a decade, in the automotive industry for about 20 years prior than that.
What you doing now, huh?
Senior Vice President of Client Success.
Is that it? Is that all you're doing? Doesn't seem like that's the only thing you're doing.
It is a lot. It is a lot. Basically, want to make sure that whenever our clients enroll, we give them an amazing, world-class experience. So
there we go. There we go. All right, Brett, what you got for me?
Hey, Alex. My name is Brett Oberfelder. I'm the director of FileSmart here at Dynatron. We do all of the warranty filings for our dealers. I've been with Dynatron for almost 8 years, and I've been in automotive for about 13 years.
Misty, I can't wait to introduce you to this personality. Y'all get ready.
Hi, I'm Misty Erhart. I am the Director of Operations at Dynatron. My team handles implementations and customer support and marketing for our Dynatron clients, and I have been with Dynatron for 5 years as of like 2 days ago, and I'm super excited to be here. I was in automotive sales, so just continuing to learn all of the fixed ops part of it now.
Well, happy 5-year anniversary. I'm sure you're getting flooded with emails and flowers and cards and chocolates and everything, huh?
From everyone except James.
Except for James.
Fair
So
enough.
hey, as we kind of jump into this here, I'm pretty excited to talk about it because it's been a lot of conversation on coaching calls and in talking with customers and things of that nature. And it's the do's and don'ts of documentation. And what that means is when we were starting to talk to people about warranty filings, or just overall verbiage on certain ROs and how things come across from a building standpoint, like Misty, what you've dealt with as we're building websites and trying to figure out how they use certain op codes from the filing side that Brett handles and things of that nature. What you say and what you put on an RO, it means a lot, and it can be interpreted in a magnitude of ways. And so we always talk about how, you're at the mercy of the interpretation of the auditor at the manufacturer at that time. So, kind of jumping in to do's and don'ts of documentation, I would say when you're seeing these things, what kind of jumps out at you as like the biggest eye-opening aspect of customers and their documentation? Is it like they just don't know? Or is it something that, they aren't aware that has that massive of an impact when it comes to an analysis or building a website or doing a warranty filing? So, Brett, what do you think?
I mean, I think it's a little bit of both. I think that in some cases, maybe whoever's writing the story, whether it's a tech or the service advisor, maybe they just don't know, or, maybe they're not used to having to correct their stories, right? They've got warranty admins that'll come out and tell them like, hey, fix these warranty lines, fix what you're saying here, right? So that they can submit something accurate to their manufacturers for warranty reimbursement. But as far as what we're doing on the customer pay side, the customer's paying for it. So I think sometimes it's a little out of sight, out of mind. Maybe the advisor is writing down exactly what comes out of a customer's mouth, or technician is being, overly detailed or not detailed enough. And again, it's customer pay, so they're really not thinking about what they're putting on their story where they would on the warranty side. So, in that regard, I think that sometimes techs and advisors just don't know, or don't feel like they need to worry about it as much as they would with warranty.
Well, I really like that. I mean, that's a very good interesting take on it. It sounds like on the warranty side at a store, they have like a layer of oversight. They're looking at it. It has to be done a certain way. But when it comes to the customer pay side, it's one of those things where maybe it's out of sight, out of mind. Maybe it's maybe ignorance to the fact that they don't realize saying what you said and how you said it makes a big deal when we're having to use that ticket for a warranty reimbursement audit and things of that nature. So, James, would you say you agree along those lines or add something to that?
Yeah, I think it goes back to education. Most people don't do it the way we want it done because we never tell them what that way is, right? We never set an expectation. We never educate them on what is the proper way to do the three C's. We also don't really do a great job as an industry mandating it and managing it. So, even if we talk to, that technician once and say, well, we really want you to do it this way. Okay, well, what's the process? What's the follow-up procedure? Right? We talked a lot, some of the other podcasts about if we want something done, the best way to have it done is to document a process, right? That way if you have a process, you can manage it. So I think it's the same way here with documentation is if there's an expectation we have, we should find a way to be able to put that into a process, train everybody on it, and then manage to it.
That's perfect. I think that rolls perfectly into getting Misty in this conversation since she's the director of operations, right? As far as your team seeing these opcodes come across and some of the descriptions that you see and things of that nature, do you see your team getting more aware of how stores are using opcodes or how stores are using documentation and then starting to understand a little bit better from the operation side or from building a website side?
Yeah, it's on kind of all across the board. I mean, the team that I have, when you become a Dynatron client, or you're an existing Dynatron client, we're consistently categorizing opcodes into different categories that helps you with your warranty filings as well as just some of the reporting that you do. And these dealerships are so across the board. We can see anything from an essay where they describe every single thing that they did in there's 5 paragraphs, or we can see, a word or we can see no words at all. And, dealerships with opcodes, they will either use them really well and everything fits into it, whether it's maintenance or repair or warranty or anything else, or, they'll really use like an oil change package, like really good, and they'll consistently use it. But then all of the repair is under an opcode that's just like stuff we did. And they'll just use that for everything. So there's really no rhyme or reason. And you get really good at picking up certain words and phrases and things over time. And we do have some, just analysis tools on our side that try to do some predictability for us, but it can be quite messy from time to time when people just dump everything in one place.
Oh yeah, trust me, I could completely relate with you. As we're
Yeah.
looking at the Dynatron software and we capture the last description that used midnight of last night, and
Yeah.
people ask me, well, I know I didn't do this repair 17 times. So that's not that. I was like, well, we have to kind of understand it, and that's why we're more driven off of opcodes and that aspect of it. And then,
Yeah.
I'd always make a joke. I'm like, the last thing they put in is found a possum in the airbox. Well, then that's what's going to show up for every single one of them. And
Yeah.
then people even ask me, they're like,
One of our favorite things to do on operations is share opcodes that we find, because some of the service advisors out there are very creative, and there's one in front of me that just says brake pads are a part of the car. Like, yes, they are. Thank you. What did you do? Did you change brakes? Was there something wrong? But it, it's in repair. It's got like $1,200 on it, and brake pads are a part of the car. So, when you're as an advisor or anyone working in there, you should always think about, like, if you're going to make reports or try to do anything with that, what does that mean to someone that's trying to categorize it into something?
so it sounds like you see some interesting descriptions come across. Is that what I'm hearing?
I do, and I save them all.
What's one that jumps out at you? I got to put this out here. What's one of the good ones that jumps out at you?
Let's see. Customer states transmission burned his fingers. We shouldn't probably be touching. And a fun fact about Dynatron is we do have international clients. We have
Yeah.
clients from Mexico, from Canada. So every once in a while, we are Google translating some of the Spanish ones. So this was always a funny one. The translate from Google says, since last Sunday, when passing a top or Ford, at the time of the fall, there is a screaming. So we we'll find places to categorize everything, even things like that.
But I like to, as you talk about how they get, more in depth with kind of getting an understanding of what they do and how they do it. Yeah, yeah. So we're talking about like with Misty, she's talking to her team. They have their funny little ones they pick out of certain descriptions that they see and some crazy stuff that they see, it seems. From your side, and as you're starting to work with the OEMs more and more, and as you're sending ROs in and you're hearing back from the OEM, well, you have to exclude this for this certain reason. What are some things that we're seeing the OEMs pick up on more and more as far as they use certain verbiage?
I mean, it really depends on the manufacturer, but any words that that are used that can indicate some sort of like outside influence or damage or vandalism, theft, things of that nature. Those are the kind of words that might render a repair ineligible as far as applying for a warranty increase. We're looking for things and words that might be more useful and accepted by a manufacturer. Might be words like failed or faulty or malfunctioned. Even if they list out like fault codes or something's inoperable, that's more favorable to words like, melted or cracked or broken or missing or damaged. What we look for is, is the repair warranty like? And depending on some of the words that a dealer uses in their stories, it is no longer warranty like. So what we train our team to look at is, would this be replaced under warranty based on the verbiage in that story? And most of the times it's not. Going back to what I was saying earlier, those words usually aren't put into the tech stories whenever a dealer's submitting their warranty claims. The warranty admin goes through and rewrites the stories and removes those words, right? We don't get the benefit of being able to remove those words. So if it's talking a lot about all the crazy things that Misty sees, has a bunch of those words in there that would render it non-warranty like, then that puts us at a disadvantage.
Yeah, I always like to use the old not operating as designed and then just put it back on the manufacturer.
Yep, exactly. Yeah.
So I mean, as we make this correlation back to James, because you were talking about education earlier, the warranty side in the dealership seems it has a little bit of a better oversight because of the warranty administrator understanding fully that aspect of it. From a dealership standpoint, how would you start to institute some type of educational program as a manager to your advisors or even to your technicians about what you write and how you write it? How do we start that conversation at dealership level in the same kind of oversight a warranty administrator has, but more for that customer pay write up?
Yeah, the first thing is you have to understand, and you have to have your team understand and really educate them that a repair order is a legal document. Right? It's not just a sales receipt. It's a legal document of what we did on the vehicle. And heaven forbid if anything were to ever happen and the dealership were to be called into a lawsuit or a civil case, that repair order is a legal document signed by the client. So one, CYA, right? It's a legal document. It should protect us. We should be able to identify everything we did. Two, when a client leaves our facility and goes home, 9 out of 10 times, if there's a spouse involved or a partner, the partner goes, "Oh, what did they do to your vehicle?" Yep. Well, they should be able to repair. They should be able to take that repair order out and within a high level be able to explain what was done on their car. Right? Read it right off the thing. They did this. They did this. We brought it in for this problem. They found this. They replaced this. And so I think one, protecting the dealership, understanding it's a legal document, so making sure everything's documented properly and correctly, and two, so that at any time the client can be educated and understand what was done to their vehicle, right? So it's the same way with like decline services, right? If you're going to document decline services on a repair order, document what they are, why they were declined, why they were recommended, right? So that at any point in time, 3 months later, somebody could go back, read that, and know exactly what's going on.
Right.
So I think understanding those two importances first, and then developing a process on what the expectation is.
Right. So having, I mean, maybe even from the manager standpoint, especially if you're in some type of a process of filing, maybe taking a little bit closer look to some of the ROs that are coming across as far as some of the verbiage that we're using and how we're using it in warranty like repairs, as Brett said earlier.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, and then kind of pushing that back to Brett, something I'm interested in hearing from you is in your experience and seeing all of these ROs and working with those submissions. How often are submissions impacted by those terms and by those documentation? Is it a little bit of the time that it's something that we need to work on, but it's not overall a big deal? Or is it a majority of the time where it's like, some cases we see huge hits to opportunity simply based on documentation of verbiage in that manner?
We see documentation issues on almost every submission we work on. Now, some dealers' RO sets might have only a few ROs that have, verbiage that we can't use on them. So we have to kick the repair out. But then we've got some dealers that, 50% or more of their repairs have documentation that would render something non-warranty like. So we see, it varies how much dealer to dealer, but we do see it on almost every RO set that we review. And that's not to say, I don't think that dealers should completely have to change everything about how they write their stories, but I think being a little bit more cognizant about what they're putting on the story would be helpful. We don't want dealers to make something up or leave out key information or lie about something that happened, right? We still want them to tell the story. But, I think that some dealers could stand to clean it up a little bit.
No, I agree with that. And you said 50%. I mean, that's a pretty big number, for things that are going against them as they're trying to apply for these things. And I have conversations, all the time where we're trying to explain that to them of how that makes that impact, simply saying that, reservoir was broken. Well, how was it broken? Well, we saw it splitting over here at the seam. I goes, okay, well, if you would have said, starting to split at the seam, that's more of a design flaw, but broken's an outside influence. So it's a huge distinction from an auditor to be able to say, nope, can't use that one. No, we're not going to use that one. Even if it is a warranty like item, being able to say, nope, can't use that because you use the wrong words. Okay. You said it wrong and things of that nature. So, tying back to Misty's processes that she does with her team, Misty, would you say that as you start to see certain documentation of op codes or how ROs are being sent to you, do people get into a state of using just one op code for everything, or do you see where they're starting to segregate things a little bit better to be able to tell a little bit better story, as Brett was talking about, at least starting down that path of oversight of document it correctly? Which one are you normally seeing as you're starting to see all this DMS data coming to you?
Yeah, in the beginning, a large majority of dealers will use, like, for very common services, they'll use those opcodes pretty well. And they'll use them frequently. So oil changes, brakes, things like that. But when it comes into repairs, we will see a lot of dealerships just throw one opcode at it. For example, I have a dealership that we're working on right now as part of a new implementation, and the opcode that they use 90% of the time is TUM, so tell us more. And they're just putting everything in there. We really do try our best at Dynatron to, bucketize things. So for your warranty filings, very clear what is repair, and it makes it easier for, the team to really hone in on those types of ROs for filing. If everything is in something, it very good chance that, there's going to be a lot more manual digging around or, missed opportunities if we can't find the really good stuff that you would want us to claim in your warranty.
Well, I'm definitely going to say yes and then back up for a second, because there was a word you used there that I love: bucketize.
Bucketize.
Bucketize. What is bucketize to you? Define to bucketize.
So again, we try to identify opcodes and bucketize them into different things. So, we can tell our various teams, our coaches, our file smart teams, what is repair, what is maintenance, what is an oil change, what is a brake job. So we have a couple different categories that we put opcodes into, usually like a major one and then a minor one. And again, that gives the the dealership's amazing reporting just for their staff, for training, for upselling, for making the most out of every repair order. But it also really helps for warranty filings because we pull the right types of ROs to do those. So if 90% of all of your repair orders are going into something called Tell Us More, and you're just writing essays for us, it's not doing anyone any favors.
Yeah.
And sometimes,
Definitely a very Texas term,
nobody
by the way.
spells the same things like the same. So there's 14 different ways to sell brakes. Sorry, to spell brakes, to spell tires, to what is the one that I always like laugh? No one can ever spell this word right. Jeez, I wish I could think of it, but I can't. But it's some car part, like a manifold or something. Everyone spells it some crazy sort of way. Sometimes it's split up into two words. Sometimes it's one long word. It's really funny reading through some of these with someone that's kind of nerdy.
Yeah. But again, James, I have to say, bucketize, that sounds like a Texas term right there. That's definitely
Probably.
categorize, bucketize, whatever you want to call it.
so. As
What
you
we
know,
do
as we
around here,
talk
y'all.
about these, that's right, y'all. There we go. So now you're getting in my terms. So, so we're talking about these documentation and important aspects for warranty filing. We're talking for the data aspect of it. But James, as we go into the education side back again, and then from your experience in the dealership, I mean, wouldn't you say that if they're more cognizant of using correct documentation, not just a catch-all, not just, whatever, tell us more, CS, whatever it is, not using an opcode at all, or things of that nature. I mean, from your standpoint, does that seem from a manager that they're paying attention to the ticket more and being able to document it, segmenting it better? Engine repair is being used this way instead of just a catch-all. What do you think?
I think if they're doing that, they're definitely more engaged with what's going on with the vehicle, and they're probably in a position to better explain to the customer, thus give the customer a better experience. One of the things they would say would be, making sure as a manager, when you set that expectation, how detailed do you want them to be, right? Because there is too much detail, not enough and too much. Right? There's two ends of the spectrum.
Yeah.
So you really have to figure out what that sweet spot is and manage it, because if you write a full paragraph on every line, I mean, that's great, and a customer can read it down the road, but you're going to almost give them way too much information up front. Either one, they're going to not pay attention to you, or two, it's going to open up a ton of questions, right? So I think understanding exactly the level of detail you want them to go into. But I would agree, if they're doing that, they are going to be more engaged in the ticket, because they have to not only be more engaged, but they have to know what's going on to be able to write those types of descriptions.
Right. And so, Brett, from the warranty side of things, especially working with the OEMs, and we know how particular these people can be. And so, what would you recommend to an advisor who's trying to get better at telling those stories on warranty like repairs? Like, what's something from your aspect, you say, if you would just think about doing this a little bit better, what would you say you would tell them?
I think what James said, making sure that they find that sweet spot where the story is not too long and they're giving too much away, but also where it's not too short that we don't know what happened. So I think length of the story, and then keeping in mind different words that that don't help them out or don't help us out as far as applying for a warranty increase. I've had coaches reach out before, I've had dealers reach out before and ask me, like, what are those words? Can you give us a list? And we're always happy to, give a list of, like, hey, here's the specific manufacturer that you work with. Here's some words that they're going to kick out if they see. And then here's a list of words you can use instead. So, we're always happy to help provide that to them. But just, keeping in mind what would make something non-warranty like, and making sure that they're sticking to it and just not, say anything too crazy in their stories.
Well, yeah, I like that. I mean, so just kind of putting both worlds together. It's like, okay, think about all the information we have to put on this ticket, right? Those paragraphs that we've got to put on there. But then, like you said, kind of taking it back a step and saying, well, you wrote 3 sentences that you probably could have explained in one. That's probably going to give them little bit better time in writing up the ticket, a little bit better direction for anybody who's reading the ticket, like James says, so they can kind of understand it at a high level. But then also, I'm guessing it from your standpoint, it's going to give them a more real understanding of exact, not out of the paragraph, but out of this one sentence. This is what happened, and this is why it happened. Is that safe to say?
Yeah, definitely. I think if they were in the mindset of, okay, I know this is a, customer pay line, but I'm writing it as if I was going to give it to my warranty admin, what would they say about it? Maybe keeping that in mind, and writing it to those guidelines. Because same thing on the warranty side. I mean, they want information, but they don't want to give too much information because that might not be covered under warranty. So maybe, keeping something like that in mind would be helpful.
No, I love that. I think that's a huge takeaway. Kind of keep it in the back of your mind. If this was a warranty ticket, not a customer pay ticket, would the warranty administrator point out anything of what you did and how you did it? I think that's a huge takeaway. That's a great way of thinking of it. So, like Misty, in your experience of seeing all this stuff, it sounds like people are really good, like you said, at bucketizing their maintenance opcodes.
Yeah.
Right? We have all of our maintenance opcodes that we use, the oil changes, the brake jobs, and things like that. So, I mean, from your perception, just because, like you said, you're coming outside into that mindset, what do you feel like, or what do you see? Is it just the easiest path of resistance to just use one opcode and run to it? Or is it like, you use all these good opcodes over here. Why aren't we applying that to this one area of repair as well? What do you think is the disconnect?
Yeah, I think, at a dealership level, making your opcode simple enough to remember, or making sure that you're doing that training. I'm assuming there's a lot of just get people, trained up on entering things and letting them go. And, to avoid having to look up every time or try to remember them or keep people concise. I feel like, we give folks just too much freedom to enter however they want. And it really doesn't do any service to them to help them improve their skill sets, or to learn how to upsell better, or to just recognize as a service department what you could do better, how you can make more money. If everything is just going into these just generic random things, there's no usable data from that.
Absolutely. No, I'm with you 100%. I mean, that's what we talk about all the time in the coaching calls when people don't have a set of op codes to an extent. It's like, listen, you can use anything you want to use for engine repair. You can be numerical based. It could say the word engine. It can be some variation of that. I go as far as say you can use hieroglyphics if you really want to, but everybody's got to be on the same page. If this is an engine repair, we've got to document it that way and things of that nature. So kind of shifting just a touch, but going into the documentation, Brett, one of the things I wanted to kind of get your take on is when in certain cases of DMSs, or including certain service lines as part of repairs. So like if they do a water pump or a radiator repair, and part of that repair, they actually upsold like a coolant system service. Are you seeing at some times the way they document that coolant service, that an auditor from the manufacturer could include that as part of the repair purely off of documentation?
Yeah, absolutely. Depending on the manufacturer and what that additional service is, it could become part of that repair or need to be included with it.
Yeah, we talk about that all the time. If it looks like it's part of if it's part of the repair, not an additional service that we upsold secondary to performing the repair, but if it's part of it, I mean, these auditors can interpret it, when this is part of the repair, and I'm going to hit you, $15 on effective labor rate because you did that coolant service with doing that manufacturer repair. I mean, with doing that warranty like repair. So, I mean, James, are you seeing that from your side? Have you seen that take place, or have you seen that happen in your experience with some of these filings?
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on the DMS and the ability for them to do it. So do I see it? Yes. Is it rampant? I don't think so, from what I've seen.
So Brett, would you say the safest bet would be line by line documentation?
Yeah, I would say in most cases, that's probably the way to go.
So kind of like, we talked about like kind of the do's and don'ts of it, but it seems like it's not really just do this or don't do this. It's just like James said, it's just more educational based of understanding a list of keywords from a certain manufacturer, and then understanding how you're writing up that story. and not putting in some of the crazy stuff that Misty sees it sometimes, but using correct verbiage, using correct documentation, line by line documentation is going to allow you to be in a better position. Then 50% of the people that we see have issues with documentation that cause it to affect their opportunity as far as being able to get a warranty filing or whatever we're looking for. So kind of like, as we start to wrap everything up and kind of roll around it, what I love to do is always give everybody the final say. So as we kind of walk through this, what is something you kind of want to leave with everybody? It could be pertaining to this do's and don'ts of documentation that we're kind of getting to. It could be, thought of the day or whatever you want to go through, but anything you want to put out there. So as we kind of wrap this up, James, kind of what's your final say you got for the podcast today?
A repair order is a legal document. We should be setting the expectation of how we want it completed, and we should be holding our team accountable to do so.
Perfect. Brett, what you got? I can't wait to hear this.
Well, now you're putting me on the spot. Let's see. I mean, I think documentation is important. I think, what James talked about earlier, having a process for it, having it documented, about what the best practices are, and educating. I think it's important to educate, advisors, technicians on what they're writing can affect, as far as customer pay lines go, right? They're focused on the warranty side, not really thinking that writing a customer pay line is going to affect much, but it really can when it comes to these warranty rate increases. So just educating the dealers teams on that and making sure that they're compliant. And at the end of the day, maybe even reviewing repair orders before they get closed out, just to make sure they look good, especially if they're in that period of time before they're going to apply for a warranty increase, to make sure everything is in good shape by the time it gets to us.
Perfect. A+. That was a good one.
Was it?
All right, Misty, your turn. You're up.
I would say, I think a lot of people think managers try to make things harder and not smarter, but it's definitely not what it is. I think understanding how your data will be used by you as a dealership and by the brand when it comes to warranty filings and any other way you might use your data. Keep that in mind when you're planning how you're going to use opcodes or labor lines or repair orders, and just make sure that you're consistently training people, that you're reviewing what they're doing, that you're holding them accountable, and when things aren't going well, that you're training them again, and just getting everyone on the same page.
Yeah, I think it rolls back to, like you said, education, and then just being cognizant. I mean, I'm going to say this again because I think it's a great correlation, what Brett said earlier. You just have the mindset of, you're writing this up and as you're closing out the ticket, if this was a warranty ticket, how would the warranty administrator look at it? And is there anything going to be red flagged at it? And then segregation of opcodes. So great conversation for everything about the do's and don'ts, kind of leading people down a path, educating people down a path. And I really appreciate everybody hopping on the podcast today. Hope everybody, you going to come back on? Everybody?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
It depends. If everyone, starts using really great opcodes and really great descriptions, I won't have any more funny ones to share, so you won't need to see me again.
Or would you just keep bringing those bucketized words? We'll be good to go.
I have one more to share before we go. This one's really funny.
To knock it out.
So the opcode is tell us more. The repair order description says that the car should be quarantined because it smells like cigarettes, and the part that was replaced was the alternator. So there is not a lot that we can do with that. Let's just make sure next time you're writing a repair order, think about how it'll be used, like Brett said.
Yeah, keep your feelings out of the repair order, people. Well, thank you so much. This is going to wrap up this episode of the podcast for today. We'll see you next time. Thank you for joining another episode of the Fuel Podcast. Always be sure to like, follow, or subscribe to be notified when new episodes are being dropped. And click the link below to review any of the show notes for additional information. Or you can email the Fuel Podcast with the link, as we encourage any feedback or any questions or comments from our listeners. Until next time, I'm your host, Alex Keys, with the Fuel Podcast for fixing underperformance and evolving leadership.